This is Columbus Circle. Located on the southwestern corner of Central Park, Columbus Circle is a true symbol of ambition, where the pulse of New York City beats the strongest. Not long ago, this strategic and cultural landmark was the target of a bidding war that drew competitors from the highest echelons of the business world. On one end, you had Tishman Speyer, the real estate powerhouse that owned the prestigious Rockefeller Center in Midtown, the iconic Chrysler Building, and later the MetLife Building. Then there was Steve Ross, a real estate developer from Detroit who was looking for his first big win in the Big Apple. Ross was already wealthy and powerful, but without Columbus Circle, he knew he wouldn't truly be the central New York City figure he aspired to become. And there was, of course, Donald Trump, who had already left his mark on the city with his ownership of the Trump International Hotel just across from Columbus Circle, not to mention the legendary Plaza Hotel south of Central Park and the opulent Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue. Trump, having twice tried and failed to build a 100-story tower at Columbus Circle, was more determined than ever to claim this Manhattan jewel. Every developer in the city was eyeing this prize. For them, winning the bid to develop Columbus Circle was a legacy-defining opportunity. It was akin to building the Rockefeller Center of the 21st century. But in this high-stakes game of deal-making, there could only be one winner. But as it turned out, Columbus Circle was just one of many battles for New York, a city that's been shaped through decades of bidding wars, deal-making, and acquisitions. And to this day, it's a battle that is still ongoing. Let's rewind a few decades, and New York City tells a different, darker story. The 1970s were tough times for the Big Apple. The city was on the brink of bankruptcy, crime rates were high, mobsters ruled the streets, and many had written off Manhattan as a lost cause.
We're dying! The city is dying!
Look at these pictures of Times Square. It was a gritty and dangerous place known for its seediness and adult theaters. Not really the place you would take your kids to watch a Broadway show. But as they say, New York has a unique ability for making comebacks. In the late 70s, Wall Street financier Felix Rohatyn helped restructure the city's debt, and under Mayor Ed Koch and Governor Hugh Carey's leadership, the city slowly began to shed its image of decay.
To protect our people from crime and violence, ensure that justice is done in our courts.
Public and private investment poured back into New York City. This kickstarted a real estate boom, and the completion of the Twin Towers symbolized the beginning of Manhattan's Renaissance.
One of the most dramatic events in New York City in the 1960s was the construction of the World Trade Center.
In the early 80s, Battery Park City was created, transforming the lower Manhattan waterfront from old warehouses and piers into a vibrant residential neighborhood with green spaces. Right next to it and adjacent to the Twin Towers, the World Financial Center was developed by the Canadian real estate firm Olympia & York, the largest property development company in the world at the time. Olympia & York were so bullish on the future of New York City that they bought 9 skyscrapers for $300 million here. A bold move when few others were willing to bet on the city. Just a few years later, the value of those buildings rose to $3.5 billion. But Olympia & York got both overly excited and over-leveraged. The company eventually imploded, and the highly coveted World Financial Center was bought out by competitor Brookfield Properties, who marked this turf theirs by renaming it Brookfield Place. As the golden 80s marched on, Wall Street saw an explosion in corporate battles, acquisitions, and LBOs, a frenzy fueled in part by Michael Milken's junk bonds. These high-yield and high-risk investments became the currency of an era defined by aggressive financial strategies and monumental growth. A 37-year-old Donald Trump was eager to capitalize on this boom. Since childhood, Trump had dreamt of building a landmark tower on the corner of 56th Street and Fifth Avenue, just across from Tiffany's flagship store and arguably the city's most sought-after location. But Trump had a problem. The site was already occupied by another building, the flagship retail store of Bonwit Teller. Undeterred, Trump called up the owners to convince them to sell him the building. During the first few years of trying, the owners mostly laughed him off, declining every offer. But when the company ran into financial trouble a few years later and needed to liquidate assets, Trump was waiting with open arms. He bought the Bonwit Teller building for $15 million, demolished it, and replaced it with a structure that would redefine the New York skyline. Completed in 1983, this 58-story bronze-colored and gleaming glass skyscraper quickly became a quintessential symbol of Manhattan's luxury and ambition. To protect his turf against competitors, Trump also bought the air rights over Tiffany's. You see, in New York City, air rights are a hot commodity. They're sometimes just as valuable as the land and buildings themselves. By owning these air rights, real estate developers can prevent another developer from tearing down a building and constructing an even taller structure that could block views or overshadow their properties. In a city where the sky is literally the limit and where the only direction you can build is upwards, controlling the airspace above your building or someone else's is an important strategic move to safeguard your investment. And Trump was going to use this defensive strategy to the fullest. This was his city and he wanted to secure every inch of it. But this wasn't going to be easy. As we entered the 90s, more and more people wanted to move to the Empire State. New York City experienced its first population growth in decades, attracting both Americans and internationals, especially the ultra-wealthy. These three budding real estate moguls wanted to capitalize on this very trend by developing buildings for the richest of the rich. So, in 1995, Kent Swig teamed up with the Zeckendorf brothers Arthur and William to form Terra Holdings. But they were largely unproven on the New York real estate scene. They were only in their mid-30s and didn't have a proper platform on which they could conduct business. So rather than acquiring individual buildings, they acquired two residential real estate brokerage firms. First, Brown Harris Stevens and then Halstead. If you've ever looked for an apartment in New York, you've most likely stumbled upon them. You see, these brokerage firms gave Terra Holdings an unfair information advantage. Through their network of broker agents who were out on the streets interacting with top-end buyers and sellers, Terra was constantly being fed market intelligence on what type of buildings the ultra-rich wanted to live in. And these very insights would soon lead to the creation of America's most expensive residential street. Meanwhile, Jerry Speyer from real estate development firm Tishman Speyer sought to make his mark. He acquired the Chrysler Building in 1998 and the Rockefeller Center in 2000, and this is when the battle for New York City truly heated up. Remember Columbus Circle at the beginning of the video? Neither Trump, Terra Holdings, nor Tishman Speyer won that bid. Instead, it was Steve Ross's related companies. But how did Ross, a relative outsider in the eyes of New York's real estate aristocracy, secure this crown jewel? The answer lies in a blend of vision and strategic alliances. You see, Ross envisioned a transformative mixed-use development that could serve as a central hub for the city's future growth. His proposal for Columbus Circle included a bold 2.1 million square foot complex featuring luxury condos, a high-end shopping mall, a state-of-the-art concert hall, and a prestigious 435-room Mandarin Oriental hotel. But perhaps Ross's masterstroke was securing Time Warner as the anchor tenant. Convincing one of the world's leading media companies to relocate its headquarters to Columbus Circle is what truly sealed the deal. Upon its completion in 2004, the newly minted Time Warner Center was set to become a new center of gravity in Manhattan. It was the most significant project since the World Trade Center. Suddenly, everyone wanted in, and it would lead to a massive development spree in the area. In 2007, Terra Holdings developed 15 Central Park West. This limestone-clad building quickly became the city's most sought-after address. Then, in 2014, Extel developed 157. Towering over Central Park, this skyscraper mixed luxury apartments with a 5-star hotel. The momentum continued in 2015 with the completion of 432 Park Avenue by CIM Group and Mackalow Properties. At 425 meters, it became the tallest residential building in the world. But not for long. In 2018, Vornado developed 220 Central Park South, selling America's most expensive apartment to Ken Griffin for $238 million. Not to be outdone, in 2020, Extel developed yet another skyscraper Central Park Tower, now the world's tallest residential building. And in 2021, JDS Development Group built the Steinway Tower, the world's thinnest skyscraper. But these battles for New York's skyscrapers and luxury residences only tell part of the story. If we dive deeper past the shimmering penthouses and into the bedrock of the city's economy, we'll encounter another name, SL Green. This company might not dominate headlines like its flashier competitors on Billionaires Row, but its influence is everywhere in Midtown, subtly marked by logos on countless buildings and plaques in subway stations. So, what exactly is SL Green? Established in 1997, SL Green has stealthily become Manhattan's largest office landlord. While many developers chased the prestige of residential towers, SL Green cornered the market on commercial space. They saw an opportunity where others saw risk, acquiring prime office buildings at a fraction of their value. Structured as a real estate investment trust, SL Green has been able to raise capital both through equity and debt markets, enhancing their ability to fund acquisitions and developments, especially during times of turmoil. One of their most notable conquests came in the early 2000s amid the dot-com bubble's burst and the aftermath of 9/11, when no one wanted to touch commercial properties. They acquired One Astor Plaza for $480 million and later the Pershing Square building for $330 million. As of 2023, the company owns a stake in 58 buildings totaling 32.5 million square feet. But perhaps their most audacious move was the development of One Vanderbilt. Adjacent to Grand Central Terminal and completed in 2020 during the height of the pandemic, One Vandy has become the most sought-after office location with 99% of its office spaces leased. As the battle for New York City continues to accelerate, this skyscraper is proof that SL Green is ready to come out of the shadows. Not unlike Steve Ross, who after his Columbus Circle victory is making new turf gains in Hudson Yards. This massive development project, led by related companies and Oxford Properties on the far west side of the city, is the largest private real estate development in US history. It's an ambitious attempt to build something on an even grander scale than what he accomplished with Time Warner Center. Hudson Yards has quickly become a magnet for high-end retailers and luxury living. But the battle for New York doesn't end there. Google recently invested in a new headquarters near Hudson Square, and fashion houses Kering and Prada both just acquired buildings on Fifth Avenue for close to $1 billion each. New York is the greatest city in the world. Dreamers, developers, office landlords, tech companies, and retailers will all continue to battle for every inch of the city for a long, long time. And the best part is that it's a battle that anyone can join at any time. Yes, even you.